Hi, I'm Stuart Clough, CEO of NoiseNet. In this video today we're going to go through the process of installing one of our noise monitoring devices in the field. We'll go through preparation prior to the job, siting, having a look and observing the site where we want to put the monitor, and the process of physically installing the monitor, verifying that everything is working, and then at the end we'll just go through the process of removal. So a key part of the preparation is making sure we have all the materials that we need to carry out the job. So I've just laid out here the standard materials that we require for any particular job, and you can see that our noise targets are making some noise in the background, just evening here. So on the left we use cable ties. Sometimes it makes sense to have a range of different sizes, but typically we find the 4.8mm thickness is suitable for the holes on the device. We have the actual noise monitoring device and its power supply, which come as a single unit. We need our calibration device, which we will come across a little bit later. So that's there are various different types, but this is the unit that we're issuing to most of you as part of the calibration process. And then we need something to be able to cut cable ties, blue tack, which you will learn about later. Screwdrivers not essential, but we do sometimes need that. Again, not essential, but often it's good practice to have some thin rubber foam. This is the sort of stuff that you can buy at Bunnings. It's very cheap, and we use that for sound absorbance or to stop vibration of the monitor against something. And finally a power lead, and generally when we go out in the field we have an assortment of power leads. Often the client will have them, but sometimes we need to provide them ourselves. Okay, so the next step is arriving at site. Obviously you pre-plan the visit so that you're being expected and you've got access and permission from the person who owns the property or is resident of the property to be able to come on site. It's important that prior to arriving on site we let people know what we're doing, what the devices are there for, and also let them know that we need 240 volt power to be able to run the unit. There are some ways around that, but in general we pretty much insist on needing that 240 volt power, otherwise things get very complicated. So in this case we've just got a mocked up property. This is not the source of a current live complaint, but will serve the purpose for us in terms of what we're looking for. I'll just have a quick look around the property and we can think a little bit about where we would choose to place the noise monitor. So now we move to the next stage, which is assessing where we want to put the noise monitor on the property. So we're at a house here that is 3 bedrooms in design, but in the direction where our noise source is coming from, effectively there are 2 levels. Surveying, we're on an upper deck area which links through into the living space, and down below is a bathroom, a bedroom, and the pool and recreation area. Over to the side here we've got 2 bedrooms which are affected by the noise source. Now what we've been reported is the noise source is coming from a property down the back, and so we want to identify a location that is going to capture the noise source relative to that property. Now when we're looking for a location, it's important that we place the device as close as possible to the receptor. In other words, the place where people are getting disrupted by the noise. So in this property it's either going to be somewhere near these back windows here and the bedrooms, somewhere in the downstairs area, or somewhere near the deck where the noise is problematic. So let's have a bit of a look around and see what we can find. Okay, so now I'm down looking away from the noise source back towards the property, and we can identify potential locations for the noise monitor. So obviously downstairs we've got 1 bedroom living space. Upstairs we've got the balcony and the deck area and the bedrooms here. So really anywhere on this front face is going to be applicable. The second thing we need to think about is power. So we can get power either from the room here by leaving one of those bifold doors open. Likewise upstairs, you can't really see due to the shading, but we can run an open window and a power point there. But we also have, fortunately, just in here, there are some power cable or power points just around the corner here in under the house. So to me, that looks like a natural place to go. The other two locations have the disadvantage that the house needs to be left open for the power cables to be through, and that could create a security risk for our monitor host, which we don't want to do. Now, the second thing that we need to think about when we're placing the noise monitor is contaminating noise. So obviously these are all living spaces. The back deck may see a bit more noise, and potentially around the pool area we could see a bit of noise, but you know, what we're more concerned about is persistent noise that is just going to contaminate the signal that we're getting. So wherever there's a pool pump. Wherever there are houses, these days there are air conditioners. So we want to try and avoid those sites for our noise monitor. Now, in this occasion, the pool pump is located in under the area where our power point is coming from. So perhaps we want to put the monitor away from that corner, and down this side of the house there are 3 separate air conditioner units. So again, we'll try and avoid mounting the device on that area. It's not critical. If there is something like that around, it is possible to filter out that noise, and our systems do cater to it. But wherever we can, we try and get the cleanest signal. So for me, the place is, we've got a nice vertical column here. It's out of the way, the cable is not going to trip anyone, it's close to the power point, it's relatively unobstructed in terms of having anything between it and the noise source, and it's sort of central to the 3 different areas where we're going to be receiving the noise, or where the noise is a nuisance. So that'll be the spot. Now, in other locations, we do need to just take some consideration of things that could get in the way or obscure a noise source from the monitoring device. Examples, you know, I could have used the downpipe just sitting here on the corner. Now, that's problematic for 2 reasons. One is because we're in close to the pool pump, and you can probably hear that pool pump now. And the second thing is we're right up against something. So as noise is coming in towards the monitor, you'll get bouncing off the wall, bouncing back off this. Some of the noise coming in is going to hit this structure and bounce away. It's just not as clean. If we look at this position here, we do have a wall, so there's going to be some reverberation off that, but by mounting on the pole, we should be relatively clean in terms of getting an audio signal. So next step, let's get it set up and put the noise monitor in place here. Okay, so next step is installing the noise monitor here on the post. So what we want to do, because we're measuring the noise between this level and the level above, we probably want to go a little bit higher on the post than would be typical, just so that we're getting it central and we're trying to minimize any ground effects of sound bouncing off any ground surfaces. So the steps are pretty simple. So we start with the noise monitor and some cable ties. So essentially we're placing the monitor, so up against the post. There's always a little bit of an art working with the cable ties, but in this case, because the post is relatively thick, we're going to need 2 cable ties, and we just try and land them neatly so it doesn't make too much of a spiky mess. Alright, so just secure it firstly with one, tight but not locked in place enough to hold it where it is. Now, in some situations, if what you're securing against is not robust, not rigid, it can make sense to put some foam in behind the monitor. Obviously, noise gets louder the closer it is, so anything that is tapping, rattling, banging on the device is going to impact by creating something that looks like a very loud noise signal on the device. So we want to try and reduce that as much as possible. If you're putting it onto a metal fence, onto columns, spikes, there's some dogs in the background for us, or similar, then use what you can to try and avoid the metal directly contacting the monitor. So in this case, I'm just putting some rubber foam in behind the device, and that'll just insulate it from any vibration. There shouldn't be any noise through the column. It's more demonstrating how that would work in other applications. All right, so next we're going to secure with a second cable tie. So I'll just, for the time being, and that will do us. So we're tightening this up. Again, we don't want vibration, rattling, anything like that that could contribute to noise on the device, and we're done. Okay, so the device is there. Next step is the power supply and the power extension lead. So we've got the extension lead tucked around the corner here. So it's a standard 240 volt power supply. We're just plugging one into the other. We have to remember we're exposed to the weather here. So ideally, when this is plugged in, we need to have that facing down. So any water is going to shed off. If we've got it that way, that is going to fill up with water, and we're going to have a problem. You know, some would argue that we should have fully waterproof power supplies and connections. Yeah, we should get to that point, but right now this is where we are. So what we want to do first is mount the power supply, and then what we'll do is we'll use another set of cable ties, and we'll just secure the cables in a configuration that's going to work for us, and again, making sure they're not going to blow around in the breeze. So I'll just grab another pair of cable ties. I still don't think one is going to quite make it around. No, it is not. So at least this time I can thread them separately. So again, maybe a little bit of rubber so that the device is sliding out of place, and we can secure it. Alright, so that's safe and secure. So what we want to do now with the cable, I'm just going to pull that up past here, we'll bring this in and these in. Right, maybe we'll do it that way. Okay. In some cases you may want to use the length of cable that we have here to get the power supply and or this connection into a location where it's out of the weather. So I could conceivably have gone across to here where there's a little more shelter and then done the connection over there, but the reality is it would still be exposed to weather. So in this case I'm just keeping it simple. Alright, just move the cable out of the way so it minimises the chance someone is going to trip on it. And we're now set up. Okay, so that's plugged in, and in fact the device should be at this point operating. Okay, now just general housekeeping. We're trying to be professional, so we trim off the tails and we make sure the tails come home with us. We don't leave rubbish at the client's site. And this is a small but not insignificant means of reducing tampering. If there's lots of excess cable tie hanging around, it is possible for someone to move the monitor and refix with those same cable ties if they are careful how they cut it, and we can end up losing integrity of data.